Hello, Power users. Today we're taking a look at how to create a parallax effect for your Power Slider, taking your slider designs to never-before-seen heights. Let's first take a look at an example we've built to illustrate just how much parallax effects improve the presentation of our slider here. We've shown you how to create this slider out of Elementor containers in our Power Slider tutorial. Link on screen and in the description. As we can see, each element inside our individual container slides are animating as the slider transitions, giving an effect of depth and immersion. All of this is achieved using another powerful Gloo feature, the HTML attributes repeater. Back in the Elementor editor, we will first need to make sure that Enable Parallax is toggled on in the Parallax settings, found in the Advanced tab of your Power Slider options. Let's also give our slider a higher transition time to better showcase the effects. We do this in the General settings in the Configure tab. We can then select the widget, container, or other element we want to set the parallax effect for. Let's start with this large heading widget here in our second slide. Going to the Advanced tab, we'll find the Attributes menu. This is home to Gloo's dynamic HTML attributes repeater. We usually turn to this feature when we need to add multiple HTML attributes to our markup, to then fetch data dynamically for keys or values of your attribute. However, since our parallax effects are actually keys, we can use the repeater here to add as many as we'd like to set up our parallax effect. Let's go over them one by one, and we will then show you how to combine them. To get started, we will first need to toggle on the Power Slider Parallax option. This will replace the key field with a drop-down menu from which we can choose our parallax keys, each representing an effect. Let's start with Data Swiper Parallax X to showcase the basic functioning of these keys. As the name says, this will translate the item on the x-axis. Positive values will make the item move right, negative values for left. By updating the page after inserting a value, we'll see that the heading widget on which we've applied this effect translates along the x-axis according to the value. Once we transition to the next slide, it will act as if the specified value was opposite when we transition to the previous slide instead. The first key in the menu, however, is actually Data Swiper Parallax. This still controls the movement of the item on a single axis, but will always default to positive values for the transition to the next slide and negative for transitions to the previous slide. We can then decide its intensity using percentages rather than pixels. Should we change the slider direction to vertical, this key will actually control movement on the y-axis instead. Data Swiper Parallax Y will do the same, except always on the y-axis, of course. Again, positive values represent downwards movement on next slide transition, negative means upwards. Data Swiper Parallax Scale will scale the element up or down according to the value. Values above 1 will enlarge the element, while values under 1 will shrink it. Data Swiper Parallax Opacity will change the opacity from 100% to 0 according to the specified value, always from a start point of 100%. Data Swiper Parallax Duration, as the name says, lets us specify the duration of all parallax effects. Let's add it just under the opacity key, which previously lasted as long as the slide transition did. Now, however, it will only last as long as specified in the value, with the unit being milliseconds. This last example gave us a taste of combining parallax keys, but now let's combine all of them on this entire container so that it's clearer. We won't specify, of course, the first key, which is Data Swiper Parallax, as it essentially represents a way to combine both Data Swiper Parallax X and Data Swiper Parallax Y. We'll instead set those two up separately. As you can see, doing this has applied all parallax effects to the entire container. This opens up an opportunity. We can combine parallax effects by applying one to the container, and then other different ones to the widgets within. So if we, for example, want to change the opacity of all items within at the same rate, but the widgets should then move at different rates, we can leave the opacity key on the container and set up a Data Swiper Parallax key with different values on each widget inside. This way, we don't have to set the same opacity key and value for each widget, but we're free to set any other key with different values for each. These parallax keys can definitely be used to create simple animations of entire containers without needing to resort to Gloo's GSAP scroll trigger, sure. But parallax at its core is an effect that comes from depth, so let's create an illusion of depth on our slide. Remember, objects closer to the observers move and change the least, So let's keep our Z index in mind should elements overlap as they animate. To achieve the example we've seen at the beginning, we've added the same keys to all the items on each slide, but with progressively higher values for those that we want to appear further to the observer. That is, except for opacity and scale, for which we will set lower values for the furthest objects. Looking at the result, this is what creates this amazing depth effect on our slider, which is made that much stronger by the fact that the cube power slider effect appears 3D as well. The new parallax powers for the HTML attributes repeater, paired with the amazing power slider feature, are the key to achieving the best possible sliders ever on the web. Moreover, all that you've seen in this video has been achieved without coding even a single line, all in the Elementor editor. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.